Blinkety blink, 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 blinkety blink, 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 blinky, blink, blinkety blinky, blink, blinky blink, blinkety blink, do 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 do. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Euro Roundup. Anyone expecting Andy Young there will be sorely disappointed. We've got a new lead singer for the intro music. We had Phil doing that. I think Seany might have been on backing vocals.
Backstreet Boys, not right, Seany?
Yeah, that's it. Wrong direction. I'm the host tonight, Keith, and we're going to just take a look back at the round of 16 games in the Euros. I'm joined by Phil Casey. Phil, how are you? The dream killer, as you now like to call yourself. I like that.
In the place, new personality for tonight. It's Phil 7 on the mic. Well, the broken
Jesus.
mic. Look.
Yeah. Over. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's in for a treat, everyone. Phil 7, the new Phil.
Nike in the house, the works and everything.
He's wearing Nike.
Didn't even notice.
Sold out now.
That's it. He's the corporate shill. Look, that's allowed. We won't.
Layers.
For that.
There's layers to this player. Tiramisu.
Oh well, there you go. I'm also joined by Sean Lawson. Seany, how are you?
All good, mate. All good.
All the way from Carrick-on-Shannon. It's you've done a good stint over there, haven't you? You're putting in a good shift over. Is that in the West?
Third year apprentice here now. Just one summer in Carrick-on-Shannon, then I'll be fully qualified. So
that's it. Tell your grandkids about it that summer in Carrick-on-Shannon.
Yeah. And this is a Chartbusters tan, in case anyone is wondering.
Oh yeah, it's just a lighting. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's all right. That's allowed.
Nice.
That's allowed.
Nice.
Yeah. It looks good. And from sunny Runcorn minus the tan, we have Chris Brack. Chris, how are you?
All right, man, as a son as well. It's Runcorn.
Don't get that, isn't it?
No, nothing gets rid of the chemicals.
There you go. I suppose, it could always be worse, couldn't it? Last week, me and Chris done a show on the Euros, and we just had a chat about the games and how it was going and how the competition was sort of shaping up and some of the runners and riders and how they were falling. And a lot's happened in the last week since then. We've seen some big names go in the group stages and also in the knockouts. So we're going to go through all these games, and at the end we're going to talk about who has been impressive, what teams, what players, anyone that's really stood out in the tournament. And we're also going to discuss the standard of the competition. Me and Seany had a bit of a set here in the WhatsApp group. People think we agree on everything all the time. We do not. And I have a view, Seany has a view, and we're just going to have a quick chat around that as well tonight, just how the Euros are going. If that's okay, drop that on Seany there. You probably didn't know, but we're just going to have a little chat around the way the tournament is shaping up. It's shaping up nicely. We're getting into the meaty end of it, so my opinion is slightly different than the way it may have started out. But look, we'll hear everyone's views on it, and in the chat as well, we'll see what the guys think as well about that. So we'll start off, lads, right? So the games that went, we'll come back to Sweden and Ukraine because that's still ongoing at the moment. And I wasn't waiting around because yous didn't start the forum till 10 to 11 or something last night. So yeah, that was a bit hardy. Phil texts me, what are we doing? Are we waiting? No, we are not.
Well, there's a fair reason why not, Keith. Like, this is one of the worst games in the whole tournament so far. So I was happy to come on time-ish.
And that, I suppose, is the thing, isn't it? Like, last night's game had sort of everything. I had all the excitement. I had all the action. I had the goals. I had, comeback. Very reminiscent of the first game yesterday. But it was... tonight didn't really have that, didn't live up to that, but I don't think much really could from last night. But Seany, I'll start with you. We'll look back at the games. We'll start off with Denmark and Wales. So Wales came into this game. A lot of people were maybe excited for the Welsh, thinking they were looking good. I would say maybe underrating the Danes. How do you feel that one went? Was it as expected, or did Wales just not show up on the day?
We've literally played Wales about 6 times, Ireland in the last 2 years. Yeah, so
and Denmark.
Sorry, Wales. Yeah, and Denmark, both of them actually. Yeah, I meant Denmark, but we've played Denmark, and the thing is, they're a quality side. and they're very well structured. They have good players all over the park. They're a very, very good side. And they were one who I felt were kind of written off coming into the tournament. But obviously what happens in the first game. And that's been the catalyst for them. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. They've all stepped up. I think every player's gone up 10%. And then probably the surprise package of the tournament, actually who steps in for Eriksen is this young lad, Damsgaard, who has been so impressive. Now, given the lads that props, like the Fields goal show, like it's not something I don't think you can attribute to a tournament anymore, because there's just everyone knows everyone about up and coming footballers, but this is one who I'd never heard of. Like, no idea. Like, there's a lot of people in the chat there talking about Malia, like who's at Atalanta. I'd say Atalanta can't fucking wait for this tournament to finish, because the way it's going, they're going to have no players, because every one of the players are going to be snapped up. There was Miranchuk, who has been very good, who was brilliant for Russia. There's so many of their other players, like, you know what I mean? So Denmark, the football they played the other day was unbelievable. And I know you were going to get onto a Keith about the quality of the standard of football. Yeah. But Denmark have played some absolutely beautiful football. Like, they were unbelievable in the last 20 minutes of that game the other day. The ball retention, how well they moved the ball, their structure, how good they were defensively. They've been really, really good, and they're being written off, and they are a dangerous outfit for anyone who they might face between now and the end of the tournament. Because like no other side in this tournament, they have a motive. Obviously, there's other teams with motives, but these have there's something there, you know what I mean? Yeah. And the Danes have history with this tournament. They won it not too long ago. So they've been really good to watch. They'd be more surprised. And that game, I think 4-0 it finished, wasn't it? Yeah. Some of the goals are lovely. They blew Wales away. And I'm telling you now, nobody will want to play them, because in knockout football, they're very dangerous.
They are. And Phil, it's an excellent point that Seany touches on. You know, the Eriksen effect, look, it's terrible what happened to Christian Eriksen. We all agree on that. But, you know, and it's not a dig at England. England have the football's coming home thing, you know, and that's the driving thing behind the English charge, which very, very good. They're getting their way through. But the Danes have, you know, the fact that one of their star men nearly dies on the pitch, if that's not going to galvanise you as a group, nothing really will. Do you know what I mean? And they've embraced it, and they've put in, they've surprised. You could have gone either way, is what I'm saying. They could have fallen off a cliff, or they batten down the hatches, knuckle down, and go through the tournament. But they're doing it in style.
Yeah, look, I said to you last night, the narrative for me in this tournament so far has been Denmark, between the crowds in the stadium, because of all the crowds that we've seen, the Hungarian stadium there, but they're just full of mad lunatics, right? Between anti-everything in that stadium. But the Danes are proper footballing people, right? And the Danes have their own issues in their own country, but they're a proper footballing crowd outside of throwing the beer on the pitch, because that must cost a bleeding fortune to go to a Denmark match, right? Because if you score after every goal, how many beers did they throw away winning against them?
And it's about €11 a point in bleeding Copenhagen.
I was in Copenhagen. It's not cheap, I'll tell you that.
What are you doing? Score a goal.
How good was that? How good was that? The bit like, your man Pilsen scores and he slides into the crowd and he's drenched in Carlsberg.
I think for me, the Denmark story starts in that last game of the last round, because they're going out, right? Like, this is you know this. You have the Eriksen bit. They have to play the match. It looks like it could get off to a worse start in terms of everything that goes on, even being forced to play on by UEFA in terms of being given the options. Either you forfeit the match and lose, or you go back out and finish it off. You know what I mean? Like, it still seems madness. And then they go out in the next game, you know, brave hearts and all that type of stuff. But and I don't mean that in a euphemism. I've just realised what I said there. But then the last game, it's a must-win situation. It's do or die, and it looks like they're on their way out. And you can just see the emotion in that crowd. And from there, going into the Welsh game, so the opposite was true for Wales. Like, Wales looked to Bale. They looked to whatever random players they have playing for them that should be playing, like, in whatever league they should be playing in. But like,
Ramsey.
Who?
Ramsey.
Alf.
Him.
It's like, do you know what I mean? Like, but when you look at the Welsh team, they had their day in the sun was the last major championships that went on. You look at Bale; he's been playing golf. He's planning on going into the US Open next year or something that he's interested in. And when they needed leadership and they needed somebody to turn up, there was nobody there. And the Danes just put them to the sword. And I thought it was, of all the performances in this round so far, that theirs has been by far the most ruthless and the most efficient in terms of what they've done, and they've delivered what they need to do. Like, you've got Bale, look who's in goal, Danny Ward. The only thing Danny Ward's ever been good at is leaking teams to the press. You know what I mean? Like, leaking teams out to the ITKs on Twitter. You've got, I don't even know who plays in defence. Nico Williams is playing at left back.
Davis,
Nico Williams,
not Ben Davis. The other one.
Yeah, man has been good. To be
Joe
fair.
Roden.
Yeah, man, Joe Roden has been impressive, to be honest.
Yeah.
see not do a podcast.
Like, I think
on his spare time.
Yeah, I think Spurs are lacking now on the centre back department. Like, he should be given a go.
Yeah.
Based on the back of this, because Mourinho said great things about him as well, which is not like Mourinho to talk about young players.
No.
So he is another one, but can't not agree with anything Phil said there. The Danes definitely the standout this round so far.
And they've done a bit of chopping and changing with the team, Chris. So I'll come to you. Like, Kasper Dolberg comes in, he comes off the bench, I think, in the Russian game, but he starts in this one, grabs a brace, and they're taking the bit by their teeth, aren't they? Or what's that saying? The bit between, they have the bit between their teeth, and they're going to gain momentum. And momentum is there's loads of ways to have your momentum. Two 4-goal hauls, and now we're setting up a quarter final with the Czech Republic. They will be confident going into that.
Well, they will do, because I think they're the first side to lose their opening 2 games of the Euros and still go through to the knockouts. So they'll just feel like it's a bit of destiny. I just felt Wales looked like a side that was full of championship players and a couple of squad Premier League players, which is what they are. That I agree with Phil. Their time was the last Euros. They've kind of come to the end of their cycle, and obviously for Wales, their actual manager is not even in the tournament. So, which doesn't help. But
to be honest, Chris, I think it actually did help, because your man's deeply incompetent, right? And I think Wales actually were better coached than they would have been had Ryan Giggs turned up. I honestly think that it did Wales a favour in this tournament, because they didn't like, they got out of the group, they did what they had to do, and they got shown up for what they are. And that's because a team like Denmark, I'm sorry to cut across you, but like, we know from playing Denmark so many times, Denmark have always been ruthless at putting shit teams to the sword whenever we played against them, and they put us to the sword so many times. So like, I felt like I was watching Ireland play Denmark. When we went to those playoff games and they just destroyed us. Yeah. Sorry.
Very true. Very true. But Chris, where were we?
I can't remember. I've lost my train of thought now.
He was talking about the fact that the Wales team is basically consisting of championship players.
Yeah, and it is a fair point. Like, who's Joe Morrell? Was he in midfield for them?
I've not heard of him.
He from all, like this fellow up top that they were hanging their hopes on. But look,
Dan James, he occasionally plays for United. Ben Davies is in and out of Tottenham. And then obviously we're bringing Nico Williams on, who's played 2 games this year for us in the league. And then Harry Wilson again had a good season, but he's a champion. He's been playing the championship. It's not the same level, and you saw the naivety when he got himself sent off. It's a harsh red, but you can't go wrong. You can't just go boot someone in the air and then assume that you'll be all right.
Very true. Very true. But the Welsh, they are very reminiscent of Ireland. Obviously, they have the star quality. They have Gareth Bale. They have Aaron Ramsey. They have your mate Joe Allen as well there, Phil. But they've got good players. But it is supplemented with some maybe average players, which sort of, they done well to get out of the group. And this is something as well, that the 3 teams coming out of the groups, they were in with Switzerland and Italy, and they look like they've really stepped it up, in Wales maybe.
They were by far the 3rd best team in that group, and they looked way out of their depth in this knockout phase. And that's probably the only disadvantage of the tour teams coming out of these groups, rather than having extended groups where you have the top 2 coming out, because to get out in the top 2 is much tougher. To finish in those top 2, you have to more or less avoid defeat in 2 of your 3 games. Win 1 and draw 1 might get you out, but in all likelihood you're going to have to win 1 and draw 2 to get yourself out in the top 2, as most tournaments would testify. Whereas with this, one win or one win and a draw could get you out, or one win could even get you out. I think where did the worst third place finisher of the lot? Were Wales the ones that skimped in at the end?
No, I think they had 4, didn't they? So I think they were a little bit better.
They were all
Did they draw with Denmark? Was it they drew with Denmark? And that was
No, they didn't draw.
They drew with
Switzerland.
Switzerland. They all wear red, so
but
they're all the same.
But 4 years ago, Portugal won it, winning one game in the group stage. So they didn't even win a group. It was 3 draws
in the case in international tournaments, like and we're going to get onto it, and this is why I think, like, and I'll wait until we get onto it. But England come into it like that for me.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Like when Spain won the World Cup, they're arguably one of the best international sides ever, and they beat Chile 1-0. They beat Paraguay 1-0. They actually lost that first game to Switzerland in the groups. Like, it's about just kind of finding a way. You know what I mean? Like they didn't perform it well at all across that whole tournament, and then they nearly go the whole way with the Dutch in extra time.
Yeah.
Whereas, not despite Southgate, I know. Look, the lad said something as well last night on the show that you'll never see a congregation of more shite managers in your life at a tournament, because it's just the truth, and it's not being negative. And I don't mind England, to be honest with you. My beef with England is small sections of the fan base who I think are just fucking oafs, and that's look. Call me what you want, but that's just what it is. You get these fucking idiots who turn up to Millwall, and the type of lads, show up to football games looking for fights. That's my bag with England and the media. But this team, I've no real gripe with anyone, even though they're led by Harry Kane. I don't mind them. They're inoffensive, figuratively and literally, because of the way Southgate has them set up. But they've just, like today, you have to give him his flowers. He picked the team to get through to the next round, and they did. And it wasn't pretty. But only one team really looked like winning that game today. And now they play the winner of this game tonight to play who was in
the
Denmark. So the other play, if they manage to make it past Sweden or Ukraine, which is fancy them there, they will have a chance at getting into a major European final. And look, he can't do much more than that, really, can he?
Exactly. Phil Seany is dead right there. Tournament football, it's not always about, going through and playing the best football. It's about going through. That's the important thing. And some teams are maybe guilty of, the likes of, Pete spoke about the Dutch last night flattering to the save, and Portugal are gone out, and Germany are now gone out, and France are gone out, and all these big teams have gone out of the tournament because maybe they didn't have that mentality of just get through, just grind their way through. Seany's right. England have a squad now. It's possibly one of, I won't even say the squad itself, because I know there's issues in the squad and players that weren't getting brought and that, but they have a pool of players there, a talent pool to draw from, that rightly makes them one of the favourites for this tournament. But if in 30 years' time they win this tournament, no one's going to really give a shit about how they got through that group or how they got past, Germany. And that's the thing that we sometimes lose track of. It's tournament football is just about getting through the rounds, isn't it?
Keith, I think we can go tie by tie if you want. I think we're better off framing this discussion properly, because this tournament has been one thing, and one thing more so than any tournament since '98, and it's been the most exciting tournament to watch since '98, right?
Yeah.
But it's been one of the poorest quality tournaments. I know this is the debate that we want to get into, but I think it leads on to the discussion of all the teams that have gone through and everything that's happened in this round of 16. And I think it's ideal to discuss it on the back of it, right? Because we talked about Denmark and Wales, and Denmark's had the struggles getting out, but they look at a different class of team to Wales, but they still look deeply flawed. We talk about, when we go to talk about the Spain game, like Belgium, they win 1-0 against a really good Portugal. So I think of all the ties that I've seen so far, the Belgium win is probably the most impressive when we talk about survive and move on, because they're playing one of the better standard teams, but they exploit the weakness at the same time because there's clear weaknesses in that Portuguese side. And they managed to keep Ronaldo at bay, which very few teams have done in international football. Look at his goals record, right? So as things go, the more I thought about that Belgium game and the result on the back of what we discussed last night, the more it actually impressed me. Even though, again, going back to the England thing, Martinez is a terrible manager. He's a very average football manager when it comes down to it, right?
Yeah.
And I know we haven't gone through, but from my point of view, when we talk about Southgate, again, a really poor average manager, bad selections in terms of what he does and how he sets the England team up. But he's up against the German team, whose manager is probably 6 years past where he should be and should have been replaced at this point.
Excellent point.
And again, a flawed German team, they can't score goals. Germans' problem is executing goals. It's unbelievable that they've gone from Podolski and Klose to 2 tournaments now where they can't find the
predators. They had
Yeah.
players who were just predators in tournament.
And every time a German team has struggled in a major tournament, they haven't had a killer goal scorer. And again, Werner is like, I don't know what happened. Timo Werner at Leipzig vanished and was replaced by an alien, right, who's turned up in a lookalike.
Dave Werner.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. He must have got his contact lenses or something.
Phil, he was good at Stuttgart when he came through. He was an exciting player, and then he stepped it up when he went to Leipzig, and he looked like he was obviously Liverpool were linked him, and he looked like he was the real deal. And now it's just, and this is the sort of thing, right? Phil's brought it up, and this is what we'd sort of been talking about in our WhatsApp group yesterday. Was I'd said, I think it's a terrible tournament, right? And Seany's like, no way.
That's a mad take, though. Like
9 hours. 9 hours.
But what's terrible?
Well, that's what I wanted to. That's what I wanted to clear up, and sort of Phil, I think, has touched on it there. I did caveat and say it's probably the most entertaining, but so low on quality, and it's exciting. That's true, and that's a very good point, Seany. And it's I'd rather be entertained, right, than watch 2 really good teams like Spain and Holland in the World Cup final.
We have a winner here anyway. This is great goal there.
From there, 3 minutes into extra time, injury time of extra time. But what I was, you mentioned the Spanish going through and winning the World Cup. World Cup final was brutal that year. Spain and
that was a shite
Netherlands.
That was great.
Yeah, it was
shithouse brilliance. That was.
Yeah, but it was shithousing. So it was tactical. Spain was such a good team.
Yeah, but
Holland was such a good team, and they were sort of tactics and.
What
that's not for everyone.
But one thing that's not being brought up at all is the conditions the players coming into this tournament are in. So if you look at like group stages in World Cups or European Cups, the first game, nobody wants to lose. The second game, nobody wants to. And then the 2 games in the group, a lot of the teams have to come out of that shell to kind of... And I think what's helped that is the fact that there was 2 place spots there for people to go through, so people are more expansive. But if you look at it, and I noticed this while it was happening, like not after the fact, I noticed saying, "Fucking hell!" Like an awful lot of these games are 0-0 at half time, but they're really good. There's loads of chances, but they're 0-0 at half time. And then what you're seeing then in the second half of games is players are bollocksed. They're bollocksed. And they're making them defensive mistakes that tired players make. You see so many own goals. You see so many, it's like lazy defending. But the players are just
Robbie Keane is the ref. Sorry, Sean. Robbie Keane is the ref. Do you see him, man? He's an absolute ringer for Robbie Keane.
It was always his dream to ref.
I
just looked up to see a fella doing a VAR check, and it's Robbie Keane.
So, I think... everyone's been watching the game here. That nobody's listening really. I think that's the tournament has been a product of that. Like players are bollocks. They're tired. Like you're seeing today, players are starting to pull up with injuries now, which I'm surprised didn't happen earlier. You're seeing in the England game. You're seeing a couple of the German
French
players.
game as well. The French game lost a couple.
Yeah, like so, it is starting to catch up. But like I'm different to everyone. Like people turn around. People are too easily led by other people's opinions, right? So you could turn around and say to me, "You think the tournament is shite," but for me, I'm enjoying it. So if you enjoy something, somebody can't tell you, no, you're not enjoying it. Like, do you get,
Exactly.
like,
Yeah, no,
they
I
can turn around and
100%
say,
agree with you on that. I agree with you on that.
But at the end of the day, I'm enjoying, like, the full stadiums, like Phil said earlier, the Denmark game, there was goals going in from 30 yards, and there's fucking limbs in the crowd, and there's beer going everywhere, and it's proper football. It feels like proper football again. And I'm someone who hated what football had become in the last 6 months of that season last year, because it was just sick of the shite. And one thing I will say was probably lent to it, and I'm here away watching it, right? One thing they don't do in Spain is, but if you're watching the game, like Pete Smith will back me up there, he said, right, the game kicks off, it's half time, there's 15 minutes of ads on the telly. And the next time they come back on, it's the second half. There's no analysis. There's no breaking down of chances of what happened. It's just football. And then as soon as the match is over, they go back to ads and they cut on to the next program. You don't have Alan Shearer, Ian Wright, Gary Lineker all sitting in the studio picking the bones out of every little thing. So all I've seen is the football. Yeah. That's all I've seen. And the still colour commentators in Spain, like, they have the game on downstairs there, and I knew there was a goal because all I could hear is a man going, "Goal!" Like, you don't have like, it's still very much the way it used to be. So it's not overanalyzed. And one thing I will say is, the reason why I've enjoyed this tournament the most is because at the end of the day, after the games, all anyone is talking about is football. It's not talking about stupid VAR decisions or shite refereeing or poor officiating. It's all about football, the quality of the goals. Like, Phil, some of the saves in this tournament have been outrageous. Like, your man Simon's save yesterday for Spain, it's out of this world. Like, some of the saves have been unreal. That's what we watch football for. Goals, fucking mistakes. It's been brilliant. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. And you touched on something there, Sean. You know what, I can't tell you how to feel about watching football, and that's not what I've done. Just for anyone listening, what happened, how this all stemmed, as I'd said, does anyone else think the quality of this is terrible? And where I was coming from, I agree with you. It's entertaining, but what I was sort of coming at was the good teams, the supposed big teams, aren't great, right? And let's look at the Spain and Croatia game yesterday. I was watching the match, right, and I didn't tweet this, I didn't put this into WhatsApp just as well, I'd have got lashed out. But I was thinking to myself, if there was a forward on these teams, they'd be excellent. But the standard of attacking players, I thought, was dreadful on Spain and Croatia. I think Croatia have a midfield. They've a competent enough defence. They're not great, but they've a good midfield. And I said, if they had a forward, they'd be a good team. And Spain, I think their attacking, even though they banged in goals in the last couple of games, was pretty, non-existent for me. And I was coming from the angle of, Holland have gone in and haven't been great. Portugal went in and weren't great. France have gone in and weren't great. Germany went in and weren't great. And not just because they got beaten. It's not that they were great and then went out. If you look back at the French, they were poxed against Hungary. They were, the Portugal game, it wasn't a great game. It blew up in the second half. Was a decent one.
That was a good game.
Yeah, but it went into a good game. But it was, it was two teams. I don't think that, in my opinion, I was expecting more maybe individual brilliance from Mbappe, for example, for France. I don't think Mbappe showed up in the tournament. I don't think Griezmann was great in the tournament. And it was the players that I was expecting. Memphis Depay or Holland, let's say, as an attacking outlet, I thought might be he didn't really do it. Gini gets goals to drive them on. Ronaldo gets 5 goals, 3 of them are penalties. I just felt that the tournament was lacking that bit of star power. And what I did enjoy about the tournament was the fact that Denmark were excellent, that, the Czech Republic are going through and are taking scalps, and the Spain-Croatia game turns into a ding-dong. Morata gets a nice goal. It put my theory to bleed in bed that there's no attacking talent on either of those teams. And even last night with the Swiss are a good team. Do you know what I mean? And they never say die against the French. So what has been entertaining for me is there have been goals. There's been a lot of gaffes. But the weaker teams, Switzerland aren't a weak team, but the weaker teams are giving it to the attacking teams. And to me, what I find is it's still that pandemic football, but with crowds. I think it's the bridge between the shit that we watched for the last year, where it was no crowds, but the football was a bit helter-skelter. If you look back at the Premier League last season, you've 7 goals for Villa against us. You've got Spurs hitting United for 6. Leicester hit City for 5, was it? There was games where there was a lot of goals going in, down to a lot of errors and a lot of mistakes.
What's made a big difference as well is the 5 subs.
Yeah.
I think that's made a big difference.
Yeah, 100%.
You just some of the benches of the teams, like Spain's bench yesterday was insane.
England's today,
Germany's today, and that's where it's being won. And one team you haven't even touched on yet is, and it's mad because I feel like you know better than us all. You saying great Italian teams, this Italy team is playing a type of football that you wouldn't associate with Italy at all.
Yeah,
like free-flowing attacking football, but it looks like. Look, if you're a betting man, if you were told today that it'd be an England-Italy final, you'd say yeah. But they're in a team where it's been shoddy defensively and shite defensively. Those two have been coming. Like I think Italy considered that first goal in 26 years against.
Yeah.
Like,
14 games, like 14 games, and then you can see.
And to be fair, England have been very solid defensively. Yeah. The whole tournament is being built on being defensively solid. So that will get them so far. But what would make this tournament for me now is like one of these wild cards to pop up and do in England and do it. Like if Spain were to win this tournament, it'd be fucking bonkers because Luis Enrique, although we won a Champions League, is a reskinned Spanish Gareth Southgate.
Yeah.
Roberto Martinez is another Spanish Gareth Southgate, managing Belgium. So the Southgate's all over the gaff.
Yeah.
There's
Mancini
is the best coach in the tournament. By far has more pedigree than them all. And for me, in the end, I think that's what will make the difference.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, Chris. Seany does touch on, I've said the teams that haven't been good, but Italy have been the team for me who have been, because they're the best all-round team. You can look at them from the goalkeeper, the defence, the midfield, their attack. They seem to have the best balance and the best blend. Would you agree with that, or is there anyone else that stood out in, some teams were good in the knockout, in the group phase, and you might see it different in the knockouts. Are they the team that you think are the best equipped to go all the way? Because they play Belgium now in a semi-final, and then in the quarter-final, and then Switzerland or Spain. They have a tough road to get to that final.
Yeah, They seem the best ones, Italy, in terms of how they're set up. What was quite good against Austria was the actual Austria game reminded me of when Liverpool beat Villa at Anfield. I actually thought Italy were quite poor, but Italy went almost like reverted to type was, well, if we can't get this free-flowing football to work, we'll go back to what we know and we'll just be ruthless in defence and try and make hard. And Donnarumma pulls up a good save. And then your man, is it Chiesa?
Federico.
Yeah, every time I see him, he just looks, the perfect sub for them. He just seems to be, a real impact player. You probably fancy them against Belgium because the talk is Belgium haven't got
De Bruyne Hazard, isn't it?
De Bruyne Hazard. They're starting to break down. Now, the only thing that gives Belgium the edge, it still helps Belgium, is Lukaku's still an absolute monster, and my thing with Belgium is a bit like France. I looked at them defensively and just thought, I just don't fancy that defense at all. That Belgian defense, I think you can get at it. The only thing that might let Italy down is I'm still not fully convinced by their strikers. Immobile, he's done all right. You and me, obviously, I've had many WhatsApp conversations about him. Obviously, he shook me up when he scored 2 in the first game. But Immobile's never convinced me, and I just don't know what the other lad they've got if the time's passed a little bit. So
Selenzi.
That's it.
Yeah, Selenzi, yeah.
Bellotti and
Bellotti, that's it.
Macaroni.
But they're still capable. Like
they're still, they're still capable. They just don't.
Bellotti does nothing the other night and nearly gets goal of the tournament. Like that's the type of player he is. Like he's Inzaghi. Like, literally, if he couldn't score goals, he'd be rolling out bleeding dows in some bleeding Fortunata somewhere in the middle of the round. Like, that's all he does. Like, he just scores goals.
Whereas Lukaku's a bit more involved, a bit more developed. I think
he's really...
Italy's done in the World Cup, going to Italy. I think actually he's done his game in the World Cup as well.
Okay, Lukaku looked like he couldn't trap a bowling ball at United. Like, couldn't trap a bleeding bag of cement, but he's really surprised me. Like,
well, something there, Seany, while you're talking about it, and it goes back to my point about the quality in this. Chris is right, Immobile is not the best striker, maybe. He's good for the system that he had there, but is Lukaku I'm looking at the team sort of that went through. Is he the only good sort of informed striker that's in the knockout stages? Or is there anyone else really?
Schick has been good, hasn't he?
Patrick Schick
has been good.
He has been good, to be fair. Yeah. He's been really good. And your man Severovic as well has been... And he's banging goals in Benfica.
Severovic is always there or thereabouts, isn't he?
He's 20 or 30 goals a season in Portugal. The goal doesn't move. Doesn't matter what bleeding competition you're playing in. The goal is out, doesn't move. Do you get me? So the goals are the same size. Scoring goals is a habit.
So here's my take on why I'm sort of in Keith's camp on this, right? And this comes back to... Normally in a tournament, there's a fella who stands out and just blows the world apart in terms of the tournament, right? And there hasn't been one on this. We've had flashes of individual brilliance. You've had Pogba's wonder goal last night, and then you've got his dance, and that dance alone fires Switzerland up. Without that dance, Switzerland don't bother their bollocks cutting back into that game, right? If he goes workmanlike, takes the ball back,
picks the ball up and goes back with it,
and goes back.
It's like Graham Souness has walked in the room.
It is, but think about these moments. These moments in sport change.
That's what a killer does. That's what a killer does.
They change events. You think about what happened in Istanbul, and I'll bring it back to a Liverpool euphemism, but they know, they can hear them celebrating in the dressing room beside them. They can see them.
He walks out and his hair is drenched. The fella's having a shower. I think he's covered in bleeding and Party Armani aftershave. I think he's just making up and pick up the job.
It's those moments, and like we're talking about, Pogba is trying to light it up and be the best player of the tournament, and potentially had an option to do it, but by that single action, I'm not saying he doesn't force Switzerland to score goals against them, but he's at fault for one of the goals as well. So then I look around the teams that are left. Like Sterling has a shout to be player of the tournament because he's been electric for England. Of all the players,
he's been terrible, but he's got the goals.
That's the thing. If you look at, Keith's in the WhatsApp group, he gets absolute pelts of Sterling. But my argument always is, but he's always there when you need him in the crucial moments. Unlike, to be fair, Harry Kane. All the papers around here now and all the online stuff now is Harry Kane's got his goal. Harry Kane's got his goal. You're going, yeah, but Sterling and Grealish and Saka were the key.
England's two best players in this tournament have been John Pickford and Luke Shaw.
I'm looking at saying, going back to your Lukaku shout, the fella who's turned up and delivered and done the business has been Lukaku. Like he's come in as the goal scorer, the big time goal scorer to score in those moments. You look at Spain. I see a lot of players who have played well in individual spaces in games, and not one player to take that team by the balls. I think Thiago in that team alongside Busquets could have lit this tournament up the way the amount of possession the Spanish have, right, in terms of what he could do. But of course, Enrique is too intelligent and doesn't play him right. He could have saved him half an hour extra time if he just put Thiago for the last 15. Because what we saw in the last 10 games for Liverpool. 15 minutes to go, if you've got a lead, Thiago's a nightmare because he doesn't let you get the ball back. And that's what Spain kept doing. They kept giving it away. Very
Spanish game where he was at, he comes on with 20 minutes to go, and Spain literally go from second to sixth gear straight away. So, this is the part, Enrique is the anti-Southgate at the same. Southgate says all the things that the
press want to hear.
Lads, you would not believe the stuff that Enrique is coming out with over here. It's mental. Like after the first game, they turned around and said to him, he never gives away his teams. He goes, well, I'll tell you who's going to play the next game. Morata and 10 other players. And he's like, but like a bottle of cava that's waiting to be opened, and when it does, nobody will be able to stop us. And everyone, the fella's gone through a bit off the pitch in the last couple of years. And I think he gets a bit of a pass because of that. But he's come out with an abhorrent amount of shite. Like, the reason why he left Ramos out because he wanted to be all about him. Like, you know what I mean? And someone big like Ramos.
That's what they need, though.
Yeah,
but
there's
again,
no leaders in the Spain team.
No.
The beauty of this tournament for me, though, goes back to when you look at these games, the teams are flawed, and it's because the managers are flawed, and the flaws allows entertainment to happen.
Yeah,
Football is a game that's dominated by mistakes. There's a reason why Manchester City and Liverpool were so brilliant for those 2 seasons, because they killed other teams' weaknesses and mistakes over and over and over again. Real Madrid did it in Europe for the 3 years. And
Ronaldo and Messi do it on a weekly, you know what I mean? They look
Messi
for the flaws and they
exploits
crush it.
Suarez, he creates a pinball in front of him and is always the one that comes up with the ball and scores goals. This is what the best players do. And then I look at this tournament, and there's so many players we don't have. Like, you're waiting for De Bruyne to light up the tournament, because he's the one player I'm looking at to say, right, you're in the quarterfinals now. People always remember from the quarterfinals on in tournaments because it's the big player makes that moment happen. Zidane always started a tournament quiet and always came into his own in the last game, and then in the knockout stages he just
exploded.
Boom, wound up. And Messi's biggest problem has been when he's got into the knockout stages in major tournaments.
Messi goes the opposite way.
It goes the opposite way, exactly. Yeah. Which is strange, because I don't know whether it's a mental tiredness or what goes on, or that constant leading the team or whatever it is. Other players, like even Ronaldo and Cristiano Ronaldo, found his way through tournaments that he gets out in the knockout stages, and then the clutch moments are there, and that's when they turn up and deliver over and over again. And like you look at Azpilicueta, what a goal to score for! Like, but that fella is a leader. I look at him and you see him at Chelsea, and you see what he's done over and over since. But he's a leader, and these teams, the teams that have leaders, and I still look at the English team and say, who is the leader? Like,
he's on the bench.
That's my biggest concern for this England team, because so far everything. The key point is they haven't conceded. Right, they haven't been in an awkward position. There hasn't been a question asked of them.
They couldn't get the ball for the first 10 minutes today, and literally what happened was the 3 boys in the middle of Germany were out on their feet after a half an hour.
Yeah.
And that's just not ripping it away from England, because they manage the game. This is one thing that England team does very well. That game management is superb. That game management is superb. Now, they've relied heavily on Pickford, who had a really good tournament. But he
hasn't been overly tested, has he?
But that's the thing.
He's done the basics right, which, to be fair, has always been the criticism.
His criticism is concentration.
Yeah.
And I think what separates the elite from the good goalkeepers is concentration. It's not having to do that for 85 minutes and then being forced to make a stop and then making that stop. So that's what he's done. He will let them down because he has a rick on him maybe. Whereas this Donnarumma fella, I don't get him. He's 22 years of age, and the fella looks like he's about 3 stone overweight. Yeah. And he looks like, I'd say he wouldn't even have to train. He just shows up. The arrogance of him for a young fella. And that's the difference. Like big players like that with Italy have leaders all over that. Like Seany is a little fucking ball. He's a leader. He leads for Napoli. Like he carries the way they are with the fans. He carries that. You have Bonucci there. You have Chiellini there. You have Verratti, who's another pit bull. Like in the crunch time, this is where they come up. I still think England might be a little bit green behind the ears, like that. A little bit. Rice, Phillips. They will be exposed by elite players. And this is where Southgate has a decision to make now. Like, if Henderson's not fit now, he shouldn't have been brought, because in and out training, getting minutes. Henderson has to play next game for England, because this is where
if he's fit. If he's fit, for me, it should be Henderson and Phillips. To me, Rice has actually been pretty piss poor by his standards. Yeah. But the big challenge for England, and people laugh, is this is going to be the first game they play now, not at Wembley. So they've actually got to get used to, which they haven't had to get used to before, is they've got to travel and they've got to play in Rome. So it's going to be hot. And England, historically, in hot weather, struggle and suffer.
London is warm enough as well.
Yeah, but compared to but we'll see it's Ukraine. So again, that's going to be a tactic for England. Are they going to do the sit back, or are they going to go back to the back four and try and push it more?
Like, he has to take the game to Ukraine now.
Yeah.
So what's he going to do?
That's not very Southgate, is it? I mean, the logic would say you play a back four, you stick Grealish one side, Sterling the other, Kane through the middle, and then play a midfield three of probably Rice. Sorry, not Rice. Henderson, Mount, and Phillips, because Phillips is more progressive. And then fullback wise, I would have started Trippier because he's probably more attacking than Walker, but it looks like he's pinged his hamstring, so it'll probably be Walker. And then Shaw left back because Chilwell's just not in the side at all.
Like the knives are out. I said, like, as soon as Southgate doesn't win this, the knives are out.
Oh yeah, he gets the Spurs job.
It's a Spurs job, yeah, by default, yeah.
No, he stays there in that cushy bleeding environment that at the
Roberto Martinez or Gareth
Southgate
is the next Spurs manager. Whoever gets knocked out first gets driven.
But do you know what? Them boys have sussed it out, and you touched on it about the level of managers. They've cushy numbers there, and why would you go to club management? Like, for example, in all seriousness, if Gareth Southgate in his club career has been terrible. And international management has suited him because he's a company man, isn't he? He's a jobber there for the FA. If he goes to Spurs and they're under pressure and he's gone, do you know what I mean? So he's looking at this and saying some managers are suited to club football and some are suited to international. And suited to international is a bit of a damning with faint praise, isn't it? Because it's, it just means that you're maybe not as mentally strong for the club, the day-to-day stuff.
But then there's the flip side. There is a skill to being able to get your team set up, get right, but you only see him once every 3 months, and that's it. And that's kind of getting the balance right, because you've got to you can't really do like the Mourinho thing where you piss everyone off and throw them all out the bus. You've got to kind of carrot and stick a little bit. He's also quite lucky, Southgate. Well, lucky is not the right word. He does have options, whereas probably a few years ago England was like, we have our main 11. And then we had like Jermaine Genius and other lads on the bench. You kind of go, we're on the bench, but we're never going to fucking use them. And if we do, we're fucking struggling then because we haven't got anywhere else. Whereas at least now we're going, debate now is Sancho still has never played yet for England, which is like...
Tomorrow will be gas because they'll be in overdrive. The media will be in overdrive.
But that's when...
world in motion and it's coming home on all day. Fucking the Deal and Skinner are going to make some money on playing royalties. I'd say they're rubbing their hand. They don't care what happens now for as long as it goes on.
That's where I'm a bit like ambivalent with England. I have been for years. It's like, if they win, great. I'm generally like, yeah, great, they won. But they don't win. It doesn't ruin my day. I kind of go, oh, well, maybe next time. And that's kind of how I've been with that for England. But it is the little Englander section that you have. Unfortunately, they're quite a vocal minority and they're really irritating.
And you know what? The match director seems to know exactly where they're all sitting.
He's homing on them
all the time.
Again,
it's not hard. You just have to look for all the fisherman hats and then you just zoom in.
But social media is a horrible place anyway. But we've just beaten Germany, which is a side we've only beaten. That's only the second time we've beaten them since 1966. We've beaten once in 2000 when we were both crap, and this time. So beating a bogey side is always a good thing, but it's literally some of the vilification, vile stuff you see on social media. Thinking, well, this is why I have an hate you. This is why people go, I can't be asked. I don't want to be associated with this. Vile things people are putting up. You're like, what's the point?
Shawnee touched on it earlier.
Enjoy the win. Enjoy the win.
It's not just us. There is a minority. Like I said, I don't really have any bone with the England team. It is a minority. Like the same. Like you think about a fella who's playing Doncaster Rovers.
Yeah,
can't believe
this is his time to shine. This is his moment.
He's going out, and that's tribalism in football. But like, if you think it's just us who vilify the English, now ask yourself a question, and I'm being deadly serious here, right? And people in the chat or anyone who might comment afterwards, and you might not like it. Why is it that every single international tournament, or even any away games in Europe, England go away, that fans get battered? They get battered wherever they go. They got battered in Poland. They got battered in France. The Russians told them, we're actually going to come looking for you and we're going to batter you. And that's what happens. Because that's the reputation you have. Look at the fucking idiot Chelsea fans at the Champions League final. Down on, like they can do whatever they fucking want.
City fans as well.
It's a big mix, a big pool of all of them putting together. What do you expect's going to happen? I'm sure there's fucking plenty of decent match-going England fans.
But
it's this small minority. And
I don't buy that. I don't buy it. And the thing for me, and I've said it out loud, and I was called anti-English, and I hate the Brits and all that type of stuff. And it's true.
We have to mute you, do we?
No, you don't. It's true because it's. But I don't see that as a small minority. I've been in stadiums with England fans, and it's the majority. And people don't. It's not. It is, Sean. It is because you can't continually have this as an issue at specific games in a specific place over 35 years. And I've been there in those crowds, and I've seen the difference. We can go away. We can go with away with the Scottish. We can go away with the Welsh. Jesus, we can go away with the Northern Irish. And you know what? The troubles
I was in Madrid for the Champions League final, and there was Liverpool and there was sports fans, and so cordial, everybody mixing. The day after the game, didn't see an ounce of trouble. That's
a different set of fans, because Liverpool fans pride themselves, and the Scouse-based fans, think about it. The majority
travel so well.
Openly out there to say we're Scouts, we're not English, right? They openly say that. They don't travel to the England games. There isn't a big Liverpool fan brigade that goes along to the England matches. And I'm like, it's not that I want to tar English people in terms of us, but the English.
If you are telling lawyers, you'd be anti-English, but it's actually there to say.
The match-going fans, I think, are a certain demographic of fans and a certain type. And look, that's not damning any good England fans that are in the chat or that go. Like, fans are fans, but you can get swept up in a wave, and you see like middle-aged men that look like they have good jobs, and they're singing about 10 German bombers and all this stuff, and no surrender to the IRA and all that sort of stuff. And it's a crowd mob mentality maybe that you can get swept up in, but these things they've tried
to sing it again.
Is this why Scouse football fans don't associate themselves with England? Is that why?
I wouldn't know, mate. I'm not. That's what I gather
as a Liverpool fan.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's also probably culturally how Liverpool fans feel they've been treated by the media, the establishment. Yeah. So there's a bit of an anti thing. That obviously there is the whole Tory thing, but I would also say, and this is probably not going to make me popular, is the Scouts not English thing. That each to their own. That's fine, but there is also the vilification of, oh, you're an England fan, and it is like, oh, you're a Tory, you're a knobhead, you're this, you're that, and I'm also like, you can be a Liverpool fan and an England fan if you want to be, and if you do, you do. And I don't, but I've seen a lot on round going where it feels like people are getting vilified for being an England fan, and I'm a bit like, well, you can be if you want to be. I mean, I'm not arse of England either way. If they win, But unfortunately, Phil says, the people who see in the stadium, it's still a minority compared to what the whole of England fans are, because not majority of England aren't knobheads like that. But if you want to go back to it, the FA, they're all Wembley club ticket holders, because you have to be part of this Wembley club to go to England games. Not you're telling me you can't find out who the lads who are singing, the stupid IRA songs, the World War II songs. Could you find them? You could. Why don't they? They probably make them a lot of money. But that's where it's the balancing act. And but the media don't help it, and we know the type of media we're talking about aim at that demographic and whip them up because they know it'll work and it sells papers, and that's kind of what it is. So my thing with England's always been they've always sort of shot themselves in the foot. Always, you've always looked at who you brought in or what they've got, and you looked at them going, yeah, but what we've got, that's not going to work. But there's also the thing of a little bit getting above yourselves with England, like, we've got all these players, we're going to win it, and I think it pisses people off.
Yeah, I think that's why people point and laugh when it doesn't work out. Look, England are probably the only international team who aren't allowed to be optimistic, because they all get tied with the same brush then, that delusion and all this. But that should be like, barring the manager, and I'm going to give them praise, barring the manager, that's an unbelievable squad of players. Let's be honest, it really is.
I think that's where the frustration is, because with the amount of attacking quality, people, I think fans were thinking it would be nice if we were a bit more attacking gung-ho. But at the same time, I'm a bit like,
they have a manager who's inoffensive. They have, but again, I'm watching that match today, and you see the carry on in the crowd, and you're like going, these are fucking mackerel mungers. And look, I'll say the same for Rangers fans. You seen the murder after they won the title. It's it's just they're all killing each other.
Like, can I just pick up?
I need to be educated in this because I can't really say too much more about it. But I just want to know where the idea going to a football match and looking for a scrap came from.
Yeah,
like it doesn't make sense. It's completely alien to me. It's completely alien. Like I watch documentaries about how where fashion came from, like Lacoste and all of them, Sergio Tacchini. Why they're famous in England? Because the Liverpool fans who went away on away trips all came back with all this designer gear, and this became part of the culture. So
Liverpool TV did that when it was there's what the rivals in Liverpool and Man United, and they're both saying like how they used to interact, going, "What's he wearing? What's that?" And that's kind of how that changed how people dress.
Look how well the United fans travel.
Yeah,
all over Europe. Never any issue.
Can I just jump in, because it's very rare that something that I have done in my life comes in on a very practical nature. No, I wrote a thesis on is there a culture of hooliganism in Irish football, right? So it was back when I was doing a degree in sociology in university. This go way back. This is 1994, when the rest of you weren't even born, right? But I was 1998. Sorry, 1998. I did my thesis in 98, and I did this. And it's very interesting getting into the history of hooliganism, because part of it was just research on hooliganism and where it stems from, and the tribalistic legend that grows up between clubs. And it does originate before football. Because if you think that the basics, the fundamental basics of football was very much village against village, and before there was goals and stuff, they used to have ball games where about 50 blokes out of the two villages would run after the ball, and who'd run to the one end of the top end of the village and who'd run to the bottom end of the village, and that would be it, right? Like, we've had bows and Shamrock Rovers going on for years in Irish football. We've had games, abandoned between Pats and Waterford in the 80s that made the television over here. So it does happen in Ireland. But at an international level, there has been this tradition of hooliganism that's floated around Europe, and the Heysel is a tragic event, right? But there's more to Heysel than just a set of fans doing it, because there was trouble in Europe right the way across Europe, with fans going to start with fans. This is going on decades. But we get to where we are today, and football has changed, and fandom has changed, and you still have legacy fans. And I hate using this because this is what was used in it is, but the mentality of England supporters, and I'm not talking about football club supporters, I'm talking about the English football team supporters, is still that legacy mentality of going and trying to set up your patch and, you know, and fighting your patch as you go to a foreign thing, and showing that you're, as a group of fans, you're beating the country that you're there in, right? But then you look at the newer age fans, these smaller countries that have had success and have used these tournaments as a time to embrace other nations, enjoy the community spirit that's there, and it's really been embraced more or less since maybe 1990, when we look at Italia 90, and then you have it through the Euros, and then the fan zones that came around in the World Cup in 2006, and it's been adopted and then used in the Champions League football games. And recently, when you think about, Seany, going back to your point, that Madrid is probably the at this moment in time the peak of fandom, where you have just this descending red army on Madrid, where there's very little trouble. And when I say very little trouble, it's basically pockets of stupid fools who are drunk. There isn't a running battles or fans.
Yeah, not fair.
It's nothing to do with football. It's just
so when we look at the noise and the pageantry of the Dutch fans, of the Danish fans, of the Irish fans, of the Scottish fans when they travel, that's about embracing a tournament for not just about wanting to win the tournament, but by wanting to enjoy and live the moment that's there. And it doesn't have this legacy sitting back in the 80s, where you went as part of your club and to go there and you're going to set up your corner and do it. And it happened in Germany for it, but that stopped. You look at the German fans, are some of the most welcoming fans you can have. And I've knocked so much fun with German fans over the years in terms of the games that are going to be in Ireland and in Germany. And you look at the French have a strange way. The Italians don't normally turn up until the knockout stages, and that's true.
But that is like they have, not to make it an anti-English thing. You look at Italy, you have the Napoli fans, the Lazio fans, and the Roma fans, and you only had to look at what happened outside Anfield with the Roma fans that walking around the city centre with golf clubs.
Correct, but that doesn't come true at the international level. This is my point.
Roma, Lazio, it's the whole fascist thing. I know we don't want to get into politics, but that still lives on. in the likes of Roma and Lazio.
But my point is that doesn't come true at the international level, right? It's very bespoke. The English thing continues at the international level. And like in reality, the most violence that they seem to have at these games is when they go to the Eastern European countries who still seem to have a similar type of mentality in the fan sets. Like you talk about the Russians waiting for them and telling them they're going to do this to them, right? You talk, if they go out to Hungary, I'd imagine there'd be killings in Hungary, Serbia, where you have this battle-hardened
Polish lads, and they go home to punch the head off each other, and then literally they be in the canteen having coffee with each other, and like your team, my team, but they come in and they punch the head off each other. But when the Euros was in Poland, there was none of that.
Yeah,
it was so. There's the partisan element with the family side, the spirit of the game that still exists. I just don't understand how it's still, like, I always attribute it happening. I didn't realise it was going on that long in Ireland, Phil. I just thought I was allowed a Muppet to watch Green Street, had it on DVD, and just showed up
Stone Island.
Walking around wearing Stone
I was at a match abandoned in Richmond Park. I was at a match abandoned in Richmond Park in '85, I think it was, between Waterford United and Pats, and there was a running battle between the Waterford United, about 7 Waterford United fans who turned up for it, and about 11 Pats fans. The police were on the pitch and everything, and that was like, as a kid, that always stuck in my head. And I remember my dad grabbing me and bringing me out. Now, but my dad end up in the abandoned match in Lansdowne Road as well. So you can see a pattern starting to emerge here, right? But like, I'm probably the wrong person. Just don't go to a match with me. But when I look at this tournament, part of the reason why this has been joyous is again, the teams are flawed. But the fans that are being let back in, and the games where they're hosting these big matches, the fans that are there, the Danish fans, the noise, the passion,
enjoying it.
It's the right way. It's that it's just bringing that tournament alive. It's bringing back those memories of the Germany tournament. That Germany 2006, the tournament was pretty shit in the knockout stages, but was great in the group stages. If you could, so I'm hoping that this thing doesn't die out now in the quarterfinals, because generally the closer you get to the final, we've seen since 1990 probably, the worse the games start to get, right? Unless you get a mad game. And I think one of the key bits in these matches have been that teams have scored early in these knockout phases, which has forced teams out of just haven't been able to sit back and say, well, we'll try play and nick one towards the end. Once a team scores early, and it's great when the underdog scores early, because that means that the big team has to come out. You look at Switzerland score early. That forced France. Right, that forced France. The disallowed, the penalty save gives France a merciful kick up the arse, and they look like a team for 20 minutes, and then they fall on their own sword. You look at Spain. The head exploded on Spain against the Croatians. Like, it just went, and they were so yapsed to get that game, because they could have easily ended up with penalties.
I was getting Cardi's fives off the goalkeeper. I was thinking they need to throw him a set of armbands, because he was, and he redeemed himself because he had an excellent second half and exploded in the game.
I did say to you, Sean, I think his mentality, when you look at that, it doesn't affect him. It doesn't go. Like, the one thing I'd be worried as an England fan is Pickford's mentality goes. When he makes a mistake, that game's a write-off. It's like watching Mignolet. When Mignolet if Mignolet made a mistake in minute 5, he was going to let in 3 or 4 goals that day. And that's the vibe you always get off Pickford, and that's what he does.
The difference in Pickford at the moment has been his mannerism. Because he used to have the Joe Harts about him, I always thought, where you'd see him before a game, he would jump up and down, shouting, screaming, banging his head and all that. You're thinking like, look like something off Meme Machine. You're going, what? He needs to chill out. Whereas he's a lot calmer. So maybe the story
has grey hair now as well.
Yeah, but the talk is he has been seeing a psychologist about calming down and focusing. So give him credit. He's actually addressed something that everyone's mocked him for, in fairness to him. Yeah. So, and in fairness,
he's relatively young, isn't he?
When he's calm and he's concentrated, and he's a decent enough goalkeeper. I agree with Keith though. I mean, the saves he's made are saves I would expect him to make. I haven't seen him make a save yet where I've gone, Jesus Christ, that was unbelievable. They are saves you'd expect him to make. So
he's 27, Sean, so he's still young.
In terms of a goalkeeper, he's got a lot to learn. Like, he's still
that's changing them. It's changing.
It is, I do agree.
See what Rafa does for him.
Yeah, but lads, look,
who brought up the R word? Who brought up the R word? I love the way they just snuck that in there as well tonight during the England game.
Oh, by the way,
by the way, it's announced tomorrow, the 3-year deal. Fucking hell, that went down well.
Is Duncan getting?
Is it done? Is it done?
Yeah.
Dominic King said it's getting announced tomorrow. 3-year deal. So those lads have put the banner out his house. Well, actually, it wasn't out his house. They got his house wrong. I'm sure they'll be made up. So
yes,
if we put a banner outside a house saying we know where you live, it wasn't even his house.
Nobody
like Rafa, like, he doesn't hide where he lives.
Let's be honest about lads. The Euros that would, like, if I ever seen something with the potential to be cataclysmic, like it's that. Like, I do
wonder. This will come across as me being bitter, but enough mind. I always hear the last couple of months, they never got us. They never got Everton. They never got us. They don't understand us. But maybe what they need is someone who doesn't get you. They want someone who's completely opposite of what you think Everton is, because whatever you think it is hasn't worked. So maybe he's the...
Well, Rafa is devoid of emotion, and it's what Gerrard couldn't want to with him. You know, he takes the emotion out of it, and he'll just focus on it, winning games for Everton.
That's why I'm surprised so many Liverpool fans are surprised he's gone there, because they're all like, why is he gone there? He'll tarnish his legacy. Like, did you not remember Rafa?
Yeah.
He's ruthlessly focused. He just goes, I want a job in England. What are the options? I've got Tottenham, but they might be losing the best striker, or go to Everton, who've got a bit of money, an okay squad for me to work with, and it's around the corner from where I live, so I can actually spend some time with kids, because I haven't seen my kids properly in 4 years. I'll go with that. You know, that's how he is. You know, I don't know why people are surprised.
But you're saying that, like, he's putting a lot of his livelihood at risk, because it's been documented since the day he left Liverpool how much he loves the city, and his daughters still frequent there, and his wife.
His wife's a big charity worker.
If it goes wrong, like, how habitable is it for him to stay around Liverpool?
Yeah.
Now, not that he's going to get battered by a lot of Everton fans, but the complex of him living in Liverpool is completely different. Now, I'm of the idea, I don't think many Liverpool fans give too much of a fuck that Benitez is gone, because if we're being honest, I think his days as a manager, a meaningful manager, I think he's spent. But, like, he's put himself in a tricky situation there. And I'm surprised Everton pulled the trigger on it after the fallout. Like, it's mental.
I'm not. It doesn't surprise me. I think they decided to try something different. Whether it works is another matter. But do you know what? He might be what they need. The football won't be entertaining, but do you know what? He'll probably. I think stuff behind the scenes is what he's there for. I think he's there to get them organised better behind the scenes. That's the issue. Because if things are as perfect as they would like to think they are, you wouldn't be bringing Rafa Benitez in.
Yeah, Phil, you look like you want to jump in there.
He just looks crazed.
I'm delighted. I think it's great. I think no matter what happens, like Sean's point is right. The football has passed. Rafa passed. You know, his time has come and gone the same way Mourinho's has. And the top
level.
The absolute mayhem this is going to cause in Everton is fantastic. If he could get them relegated, right? Honestly, it will be the best season of all time. And they just need to be so bad that they can't catch back up by Christmas time, right? Like, that's because their only options then would be Sam Allardyce, and they're not going back there again.
What's the fixtures like?
The opening fixtures are quite favourable, I think.
Well, then that might be because, like, if he loses first 2 or 3 or 4, man, imagine how bad that's going to be.
He loses the first one. He loses the first game. They'd be bleeding.
They don't win if they don't win every preseason game, they'll be absolutely.
Like, you're talking about, like, how bad is it that, like, and I'm not picking out small, because I was doing a bit of digging and a bit of looking. These were fans who are, like, talking themselves around to Steven Gerrard being their manager and getting excited about it, right? So they were willing to go that far, but they cannot live with the idea that Rafa Benitez is going to be their manager. So how bad can it be that they were literally willing, the greatest player to ever play for, well, in recent memory, Gerrard, a Liverpool legend, they were willing to have him as a manager at the thought that he might be progressive and might bring them onto, like, they were warming up to the idea, and now they're stuck with Benitez. Like,
I think it's great. Look, Steve Bruce has managed to get Newcastle finished in a higher position than Benitez did with Newcastle, and there's people coming on to me. It's childish to suggest that Rafa will try to relegate the Ev. Oh my God, cop the fuck on! Like,
it's a joke.
It's a joke. It's like, wake up. I think
intentionally bleeding, do it.
Maybe he is. Maybe Liverpool. As I said last night, I think Mo Sherry is actually just a pen name of John Henry, right? And he's basically on the greatest wind-up ever.
He's going to do a Souness. He's going to do a Souness and run out into the middle of Goodison with a big Liverpool flag and banger in the middle and just straight out the gate.
It's going to be like... Feel like it's going to be like WWE. Halfway through it, he's just going to take a chair shot to someone and just whip off a Liverpool shirt and run off.
Yeah, Duncan Ferguson chasing him out of the gate with one of bleeding Howard Kendall's drivers. One of Howard Kendall's 7 irons.
They're going to reveal that the new Everton Stadium's a joint inflatable that's going to float around in the Albert Dock is, right? And they can blow it up and take it down in between matches. Like, do you know what I mean?
It's a disaster. Everton are a disaster.
Do you know what I would love him to do in his first home game? Just come out and wear a red tie. Nothing else. Just wear a red tie. That'll fucking flip half the crowd automatically.
Doesn't he have a red hall door and all? You want to paint that?
He's got
and garage doors and everything.
And he still couldn't find the right gaff.
Yeah. He's also got a dog, and the dog's called Red. So
he's on a hiding to nothing, then, isn't he? He's on a hiding to nothing.
That's a real wind up. Like, can you imagine? But it also puts another thing in perspective. You know, these Liverpool fans who still say, like, every time there's even a hint of a job going in Liverpool that we should bring Rafa back. Like, this has to end this once and for all. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is the end of it.
Now, there's sometimes a bit too much sentiment. You know, it's very rare someone comes back for a second time. What's that? Sorry.
Will they whip him off the flag?
I've read all this bollocks. You know, take up the flag. That's it of his legacy. I said he's won you a Champions League, and don't forget what he did for the Hillsborough families as well.
Yeah.
And
I love Rafa. I think he's a great bloke.
If he'd have gone to Everton straight from us, it'd be a different kettle of fish. Because he still had his he was still Rafa then, you know what I mean? But I just think, I agree, it's like Mourinho. I think not a busted flush, but the days at the very top, I think, are probably gone.
Well, ask United fans. Do United fans still love Mark Hughes? They do, don't they? He managed City. They fucking hate City. And Schmeichel. Yeah. You know, it's after, you know, Arsenal fans still love George Graham. He went to Tottenham. He had Tottenham when they weren't obviously the top they on.
Yeah, we didn't.
They were a couple of years ago. It's almost like when someone obviously pays millions a year in salary, that sentiment goes out the window. It's almost like that's not.
Who'd have thought it? Yeah, who'd have thought that money talks? Well, lads, we have to stop on this. The Euros. We have to go back to it.
Oh, that's more fun.
I know, it's back to these Euros. But listen, before we wrap it up, because we're an hour and 10 minutes in and we could go for another hour talking about Rafa and Everton alone. But the quarterfinals are now set, right? So we've got Belgium and Italy, and then Switzerland and Spain on one side of the draw. We've got England against Ukraine and the Czech Republic against Denmark. We've sort of answered this earlier, but I want each of you to tell me who you think is coming out of each side of the draw. So who's going to meet in the finals. And I want you also to tell me who's impressed you the most in the tournament so far, be it a player, a team, or whatever. So, Chris, I'll start with you. Who's getting to the final of this tournament based on what you've seen so far, and who has impressed you the most?
Let's go with Italy, England for a laugh. But the ones who impressed me, Switzerland as a team have impressed me. You know, they always are thereabouts for such a small nation, and I don't mean that disparagingly. They're always getting stuff, but they're always getting themselves very competitive against sides you would never think they're competitive about. And so I've just enjoyed watching Italy, and they've been great. Unlike the basket case that is the Dutch, you know, they've actually got a plan. Italy, I do think Italy probably must be the favourites now to win it, because I think they have the best manager, and I think they have two ways of playing now. They can go very attacking, or they can dog it out very well, which is what the Italians do, as long as Chiellini can get back fit.
Excellent. Phil, what about you? Who do you see getting to the final, and who's been impressed the most?
So I think, like, on the Dutch, we didn't talk about them because I think they made a fatal mistake in appointing Frank de Boer. I said it last night. I thought Kaku was the man. In the same way, the one thing that Southgate has gone from is that he's more or less coached this squad and these players since under 19. So they all know him inside out, and he has the respect. Kaku would have been a similar name for the Dutch side because he was manager of PSV for so long, from 2011 through to 2018, and he wins 3 leagues in a row, and he does well with PSV. I thought that would have been a natural fit, especially because he's out of a job at the moment, and I think he would have done better with that Dutch squad and probably picked a better Dutch squad. Neither here. Semi-finals, there's always going to be a surprise. right? In the quarterfinals, there's going to be a surprise. So the question is, where does it come from? Is it Switzerland? Is it the Czech Republic? Or is it the Ukraine? I can't see the Ukraine. Looking at them tonight against Sweden, I can't see the Ukraine doing England. No matter what we look at, the quality England have is just too strong for that Ukraine side, right?
To be fair, we said that when England played Iceland, and people were really surprised when Roy Hodgson turned up. So you never know, and if it's possible.
No, I don't, because there is a massive gap in terms of talent level between the Ukraine and England, and normally in this situation, the only thing that levels it a wee bit is that it's not in Wembley, right? That's the only sort of leveler. But even at that, you've got enough top quality players to get England through that quarterfinal. So that comes back to Denmark and the Czech Republic.
I fancy the Danes for that.
Everyone fancies the Danes, so that's what I think. That's the upset. I think the Czech Republic come out of that game, and it sets England up for an easier run into the final. Right? Because I think England's name is in the final, and I think that's maybe where they fall short, depending on what comes out on the other side. On the other side, Italy, Belgium,
Spain.
I think
Switzerland beat Spain.
I think Switzerland. We haven't mentioned them, but I think Shaqiri. If Switzerland beat Spain, I think there's a shout, and Shaqiri plays to the level he's been playing. There's a very big shout that says this fella is getting close to being player of the tournament, because he's been electric for Switzerland.
Shaq has been very good as well.
He's been adding euros to his value as this tournament's gone on, and I just look at that Spanish team, and it's so flawed. There's so many flaws in it, and they play the worst best centre forward ever, all the time. He's like Torres without the goals. Yeah, Gavin Walsh, it is true about the Rabiot mother, and the Rabiot's mother was battering the head off.
a head case.
Rabiot's man's a bleeding basket case.
Screaming at Pogba's family, saying that he was at fault, he shouldn't have been dancing, and it was his fault that they conceded the goal, and then giving out stink to Mbappe's family, saying he's too arrogant and shouldn't have taken that last penalty. Mentlers. So yes,
French, carry on.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I don't know, lads. I think the Italy thing is too set up for them to get to the final. There's too much talking about it's their tournament, and I think Belgium do them. I think that weakness in attack shows up more against this Belgium side, which have a decent defence, than if they were playing, say, Spain or Switzerland there. And I just think,
do they have a decent defence?
I think they've been good.
They've an experienced defence, and I think Italy maybe don't have the electric attack that'll do them, So maybe it plays in. Even the likes of
they've got an excellent goalkeeper.
Yeah,
Courtois has been excellent, to be fair.
They have got an excellent goalkeeper,
and he's been unbelievable in the Liga this year. Unbelievable, like different level.
I'm going Belgium, Switzerland semi-final, Czech Republic, England semi-final,
and final.
It's.
I did ask for a finalist, and you've given me a semi-final.
He's going to say Switzerland, Czech Republic. You can see he wants to.
No, it's Belgium, England Belgium, England final. It's the only way England win the Euros. If Italy turns up in the final, if Italy turns up in the final, England definitely win it, because it's in Wembley, and the Italians can't play football in England. It's a well-known thing. So Belgium, England is more or less an FA Cup final. Roberto Martinez's Wigan versus Gareth Southgate's Middlesbrough. So there's your Euro 2020. So stick that up your point, Seany. It's our best tournament ever.
I think did I describe Belgium as the Leicester of international football? So that would actually fit in, wouldn't it, if it's an FA Cup final?
Yeah. There you go. And Phil, who's impressed you the most? Player, team, whatever, in this tournament?
Player, team. I think we lost probably the most enjoyable player to watch. And that was Gini Wijnaldum, because the amount of talk about Wijnaldum in this tournament has been off the charts, and I just think it's because he's left. But in reality, I don't know. I think it's been more, again, I think it's a narrative around the Danish team that to come back again and fight against the odds. Because I'm telling you, it's against the odds story to get to where they are today in terms of what's going on. And it's a collective as opposed to one player. As I said, I'm still waiting for this. I'm waiting for the breakout, standout player, and we've only seen the last 16. The quarterfinals defines it. The quarterfinals defines if one player goes on and blows this tournament sky.
Who's the Zidane in this tournament that steps in when it matters?
KDB, I think.
Well, Seany, I was going to come to you. So who do you see getting to the final? Who comes through for you?
Italy beat Belgium. Mancini's a better manager. They'll beat them. I can see Austria beating Spain. Spain are mad.
Switzerland.
Switzerland. I keep saying, sorry. I can see Switzerland I can see Switzerland beating Spain because Spain are just mad. Spain are mad. So, like they didn't look like scoring for the first 2 games. They get 10 goals in the last 2 games. So I can see them beating them though. I can see Switzerland beating them. Who else you have? Czechs, Danes, fancy Denmark. I think Denmark are born and bright at the moment, and I think England will beat Ukraine. I just can't see. I can't see an Iceland moment there for England. I just can't see.
You never say never.
No, because
they're too strong. I think on the bench they can.
You would think so, wouldn't you? And we haven't got Joe Hart in goal, which is always a bit of a winner.
Yeah, and Shevchenko, like I honestly thought he evaporated, like Thanos snapped him after in Istanbul. Like I seen him there celebrating tonight, and I was like,
he's not East though, is he?
No,
he looks the same. He looks the same now, which is really annoying. Question quick question, Denmark, because you'll know this, Sean. Is Simon Kjær? Is he fit? Because I know he went off, didn't he?
I think he will be fit.
Because he's the talisman. He's been the key for them. Him and Schmeichel, but him especially has really gone up a level.
The standout for me has been your man Spinazzola. Like, what a player! Like you talk about Fields Gold. It's hardly Fields Gold at every single team now in Europe wants him. Like he's been excellent. And we said it the other day, like number 10s are dying in football. You don't see your traditional number 10 anymore.
Yeah.
But these creative fullbacks, they seem to be popping up all over the place. And look, we've seen Figo running games from the wing. Like Zidane played left mid for Madrid in the Galactico era and ran games. But we're actually seeing fullbacks now. Like Spinazzola is the furthest man forward for that Italy team most of the time on that left-hand side. And he's been unbelievable to watch. Another one who's been really good is that Damsgaard kid. Like pure Andre Arshavin vibes of him. Like just lifting it up. Like, and he comes in for Eriksen, which is the interesting part. Italy win this tournament. Italy win it. But I know Phil says about playing it. They can turn up. If there's a nation of fuckers who don't give a bollocks what's going on in the crowd, it's this Italy team, full of little arrogant bastards, little arrogant pigs.
It's not even about that. They go to England and they turn into wallflowers. That's what happened last game.
It's a final. They have too much quality. Like that's what I think.
Yeah, I have the same opinion. I think England get to the final, and I think it's a stinker, and I think Italy come out on the right side of that. But I think England have done well, and I think they will do well. I think they'll beat Ukraine. I think they'll have enough for Denmark because I think injuries are going to catch up on these other teams, and I think England's
squad
reserves are just so high quality. The squad is such high quality.
Apart from
I think they can. Well, the centre backs, but if they keep their relatively fit, they can bring in. They've enough attacking players, I think, to change things, and I think England will come through that side and Italy. Again, Johnny's a great shout there for Spinazzola. He's been brilliant. Him and Mela as well off Denmark. You know, fullbacks, attacking fullbacks playing on their wrong side and still impacting the game. You know, it's great to see. But for me, the best player, the Italian midfield, I think have been excellent in this tournament. I think Jorginho. I think Barella has been brilliant. And I think even like then Verratti comes in and looks good. You know, I think they have a lot of quality in that midfield. And I think that's where they could win the game against England if it does go to a final like that. I think it's where they can beat Belgium as well. I think that they're such a good control team, but not ultra defensive. You know, they like to get forward. So yeah, for me, Italy to win the tournament, and the unsung heroes of the Italy squad maybe have been the standout players as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
If Italy win this, Federico Chiesa has to become this generation's Paolo Rossi. Doesn't get a look in the group stages and breaks out in the knockout phases. That's the way this has to go.
See, that's the thing, isn't it? Because I think Berardi has done okay. I think Berardi's done good on the wing for them. Insigne has done good as well. Chiesa he was the one they all expected to play. He was the one that they thought would be the main attacking spark, and he just hasn't been able to really get in. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think he's on the cusp of getting in there, but Mancini, unlike some other
Mancini's
managers, he settles
ruthless.
on his team, doesn't he?
He left Locatelli out.
Yeah.
It was looking like going to be player of the tournament. He says, "Yeah, you have a seat," and that's what a big manager can do. Like, you see a little bit of conjecture today in the media because Southgate didn't bring fucking Calvert-Lewin to the stadium, and it's thought it's party and all that. Though when it all falls down, it'll come down on top of Southgate, and that's where I think, because like I'm not being funny. Look at the pre-match today. Like, Southgate was shitting himself.
Yeah, he doesn't carry himself like a confident man, doesn't he? Not, and that's the thing.
And that bleeds through. That does bleed through to the players onto the pitch. Whereas you look at Mancini, like for absolutely no reason the other day, he has the blazer.
Yeah.
By 2 fingers over the shoulder in the post match for no reason. We could have left in the dressing room, but you just said, "No, you know what? I will do it." It's fucking. He's great. He is. He's man of the tournament, and that just that singular strain of grey hair he has going on in the front there.
He looks the business.
It's a joke. Sharp. Makes me sick.
It's also good to see Vialli on the bench with his after all his
I didn't realise that was him.
Yeah. And that's a throwback, Phil. You well remember the old Sampdoria team and in the 80s with Vialli and Mancini leading the line, and they were a great double act back in the late 80s, early 90s, you know, and it's great to see the two of them linking up at the managerial level. But look, the Italians seem to be the most strong and balanced team so far in it. But we can't rule out England. They have a very favourable draw. We'll see how it goes. We'll come back next week and see how the competition is shaping up. So, lads, I want to thank you for coming on and having a chat tonight. Chris, thank you very much.
No worries, mate.
Phil, always a pleasure to have you on.
Phil Seven's debut.
Phil Seven,
the Nike Phil. As I get ready.
Phil.
Phil Knight.
As I get ready for my first adventure race ever. So that's why I'm awake at night time. So
there you go. What a man. And Shawnee Lawson, all the way from Carrick on Shannon. Thank you very much for joining us, pal.
No, what a Carrick on splaining.
Is it warm there?
It's absolutely boiling up. I'm up in the attic here and I'm actually melted. I'm not going to lie to you.
Good stuff. Listen, we've been the Daytrippers. This has been the Euro Roundup, and we'll see us all again soon.